You're standing in the locker room, your hands are wrapped, your cornerman is lacing up your gloves. In 20 minutes, you'll walk through that tunnel into a packed arena with 10,000 people screaming. Your opponent is undefeated. He's faster than you, probably stronger too. You need an edge, any edge, so you're going to cheat. The question isn't whether you'll cheat, it's how. Boxing has rules, lots of them. They exist to keep fighters safe, to make the sport fair, to prevent someone from getting permanently damaged. But here's what nobody tells you. Every single rule in boxing has been broken. Every protection has been exploited. And some of the greatest fights in history were won by boxers who knew exactly which lines to cross and how to get away with it. Let's start with the simplest method, the one that happens in almost every single fight, whether anyone admits it or not. You're in the clinch. Your opponent has you pressed against the ropes. The referee is moving in to break you apart. Right before he does, you drive your forearm across your opponent's face. Not your glove, your forearm. It's a smash disguised as an accident. Floyd Mayweather made a career out of this move. When opponents got too close, he'd use his forearm like a battering ram, snapping their head back. Technically illegal, rarely called. Why? Because in the chaos of close combat, it looks like you're just trying to create space, but that's kindergarten level stuff compared to what comes next. Your corner knows something the crowd doesn't. Before you even entered the ring, they made a choice about your gloves. Not all boxing gloves are created equal. Some brands hit softer, some hit like you're swinging concrete. Cleto Reyes gloves are called puncher gloves for a reason. They're legal, but they're designed to do maximum damage. Choosing the hardest allowed gloves isn't technically cheating, but it's walking right up to the line. Your opponent might be wearing softer gloves. You might be wearing weapons. Then there's the laces. Those innocent-looking strings that tie your gloves shut? Some fighters position them so they face outward. When you throw a jab, that hard knot catches your opponent right above the eye. Suddenly he's bleeding. The ref stops the fight to check the cut. You just bought yourself 30 seconds of rest and turned his face into a target. Was it intentional? You'll never admit it. Now we're getting into darker territory. Your trainer is wrapping your hands right now, layer after layer of gauze and tape. This is supposed to protect your knuckles, keep your wrists stable. But what if he adds something extra? In 2009, Antonio Margarito's trainer was caught red-handed trying to insert pads laced with plaster of Paris into his gloves before facing Shane Mosley. Plaster of Paris. The stuff hardens when it gets wet, which means every time Margarito's hands started sweating, his gloves would turn into rocks. The powder would absorb the moisture and solidify. By the middle rounds, he wouldn't be throwing punches. He'd be throwing bricks. They caught him that time. But how many times didn't they catch him? Here's the thing that keeps you up at night. In 1983, a fighter named Luis Resto stepped into the ring against Billy Collins Jr. Resto's trainer. Panama Lewis had removed the padding from inside Resto's gloves, not added something, removed the protection. Collins took a beating so severe his face was unrecognizable. The fight destroyed his career. Less than a year later, Collins died in a car accident that many believe was suicide. Resto and Lewis went to prison. Actual prison. Assault charges, conspiracy, possession of a deadly weapon. Because that's what a glove without padding is. A weapon. You're probably thinking that's too extreme. You'd never go that far. You just want to win. You're not trying to end anyone's life. Fair enough. Let's talk about what happens during the fight itself. Round 3. You're getting tired? Your opponent is landing clean shots. You need a break, but the bell is still 90 seconds away. So you grab him, you wrap your arms around his and hold on. Clinching. It's technically illegal, but referees let it slide constantly. The ref breaks you apart, warns you, but you just bought yourself 15 seconds of recovery time. Do it enough and you can steal 2 full minutes of rest across a 12-round fight. But what if you need more than rest? What if you need to hurt him? That's when you go for the rabbit punch. Quick shots to the back of his head when he's not looking, to the base of the skull, to the back of the neck. These punches are incredibly dangerous. They can damage the spinal cord, cause permanent injury, end careers. They're also incredibly easy to hide in the confusion of a fight. The referee is watching from one angle, you throw from another. By the time he notices, the damage is done. And if you really want to break him, there's always the low blow, a punch straight to the groin, below the belt. The pain is instant and debilitating. Your opponent doubles over. The referee steps in with a warning. You get another 30 seconds while he recovers. Roberto Duran used this so effectively in his fight against Ken Buchanan that Buchanan couldn't come out for the 14th round. Duran won by technical knockout. Was it intentional? Duran never said, but he walked away with the victory. Then there's the headbutt. There's a massive difference between an accidental clash of heads and a deliberate headbutt disguised as an accident. When 2 fighters move in simultaneously and their heads collide, that's unfortunate. When you duck low and drive your forehead into your opponent's eyebrow while making it look like you slipped, that's strategy. The referee can't prove intent. Your opponent is bleeding. The doctor might stop the fight. You might get a technical decision in your favor. But what about the stuff that happens before you even step into the ring? What if the fight is already decided before the opening bell? Match fixing has plagued boxing since the beginning. In 1947, Jake LaMotta took a dive against Billy Fox. LaMotta cut a deal with the Mafia. Lose this fight, they said, we'll get you a title shot. LaMotta went down in the 4th round. It was so obvious the New York State Athletic Commission suspended him indefinitely. He eventually got his title shot 10 fights later. The movie Raging Bull made him a legend. But that 4th round against Fox? That was theater. Harry Thomas admitted in 1939 that he'd fixed 2 matches for cash. One against Tony Galento for $23,000, another against Max Schmeling for $8,500. He lost both on purpose. Arthur Pelkey confessed to match fixing in 1913, pointing fingers at his manager Tommy Burns. These weren't isolated incidents. They were business transactions. Don King ran an entire tournament with falsified records. 11 fighters had fake win-loss histories to make them look more competitive than they were. When journalists started digging, the whole thing collapsed. ABC canceled the broadcast. But how many other tournaments ran without anyone checking? Now let's talk about performance-enhancing drugs. You want an edge in training. You want to recover faster between rounds. You want to hit harder without your body breaking down. Testosterone does all of that. It boosts muscle mass. It increases red blood cell production. Canelo Alvarez tested positive for clenbuterol twice before his rematch with Gennady Golovkin. He claimed it was contaminated meat. The fight still happened. Shane Mosley admitted to using steroids before fighting Oscar De La Hoya. He won that fight. Later, he said his trainer gave him supplements called the Cream and the Clear, said he didn't know they were steroids. Victor Conte, the man who supplied them, said Mosley absolutely knew. Who's telling the truth? Does it matter? Mosley's punches were enhanced either way. Mike Tyson revealed on his podcast that he used baby urine to pass drug tests during his career. Baby urine. He'd hide a small container and swap samples when no one was looking. It worked. Norwegian research suggests steroid benefits can last long after you stop using them, which means a fighter could cycle off months before a fight and still carry the advantages into the ring. Ryan Garcia dropped Devin Haney multiple times in their fight. Garcia missed weight. Then he tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs days later. The victory stood initially. The celebration didn't last long. The consequences for getting caught vary wildly. Referees issue warnings for most fouls. Headbutts, low blows, hits after the bell. If you keep doing it, they deduct points. If you really push it, disqualification. Tyson bit off part of Evander Holyfield's ear in their 1997 rematch. Disqualified, fined $3 million, temporarily banned. He came back. Luis Resto went to prison. Actual prison. Assault charges for removing the padding from his gloves. His trainer Panama Lewis went with him. Both banned from boxing for life. Billy Collins Jr., the man Resto destroyed that night, never fought again. Dead within a year in what many believe was suicide. Antonio Margarito got his license revoked for 1 year after the Plaster of Paris incident. His trainer Javier Capetillo got the same penalty. 1 year, that's all. For trying to turn gloves into weapons. Corruption runs deeper than individual fighters. Roy Jones Jr. dominated Park Si-hun in the 1988 Olympics. Lost anyway. The judges gave it to the Korean fighter in one of the most controversial decisions in boxing history. Many suspected the judging was bought. Jones never got that gold medal. The line between gamesmanship and crime isn't always clear. Applying too much Vaseline can make you too slippery to grab. Positioning your glove laces outward can open cuts. Excessive clinching steals recovery time. Spitting out your mouthpiece buys you 30 seconds. These tactics live in gray areas. Referees might warn you. They might not. This is what separates the sport from the business. The sport has rules. The business has results. And in the business, winning justifies almost anything until you get caught. You know what happens when you step into that ring tonight? You make a choice. Not just about which rules to break, but about who you become in the process. Every illegal blow, every doctored glove, every dive you take for cash changes something permanent inside you. Billy Collins didn't consent to fighting a man with loaded gloves. His family didn't consent to burying him a year later. The greatest lie in boxing is that everyone does it. That if you're not cheating, you're not trying. But here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Most fighters who cheat don't become champions. They become cautionary tales. They become the guys people whisper about, the ones who needed an edge because their skill wasn't enough. You're standing in that locker room right now, making a decision that will define your entire career. Your trainer is holding those raps. The commission inspector just walked out. Nobody's watching. You can cross that line. You can harden those gloves, position those laces, plan that headbutt. You can become the fighter who needed chemistry instead of heart. Or you can walk out there with nothing but your hands and your will and find out what you're actually made of. The choice was never about winning. It was always about what you're willing to live with after.